We have come to the closing session. It is like a free discussion session. By the will of God, we will allow all those who want to speak to speak. We have a double mission for this session. It is a session of assessment of the work of this forum, and at the same time, it's an opportunity for those who wish to do so to express their point of view or a preliminary perception of future topics that deserve to be discussed within the framework of this forum or other frameworks, and it's an opportunity for us to exchange ideas and notes on the future of Palestine and the Palestinian National Project. As you see, the door is wide open to all your interventions. Naturally, we want to give the opportunity to the largest possible number. We will insist, however, on you being brief. Otherwise, if every introduction turned into a speech, we want a short, pointed, brief idea of what you want to say. Thank you. 3 minutes, maybe, maximum, because we have to vacate this hall at 6 o'clock. Good afternoon to you all. Before we open the floor for the discussion, I would like, first of all, to thank you all for your attendance, all the efforts you've exerted. Before you start criticizing, I will cut you off by saying it was a success all the way through. Thank you very much for all the organizers. In case we run out of time and forget to thank you all, I would like to thank all the organizers, participants, Khalid Farraj, everybody, the Institute for Palestine, Ayat Hamdan, the Arab Center, everybody who took part, except me, of course. The thanks go to them all, except for me and Tarek, of course. Now, it's we received an important note from Marwan al Barghouthi. He is a prisoner of war. Mrs. Fadwa al Barghouthi will read it on his behalf. Of course, politically, it may not represent all the views of the prisoners of war. We decided to listen to the most prominent amongst them. Mrs. Fadwa, please, the floor is yours. Read the message on behalf of Marwan al Barghouthi. Assalamu alaikum. And the blessings of God be upon you all. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for this opportunity. We are used to the idea that when we have a message from Marwan al Barghouthi, we give it priority because it's not easy for his words and this message to reach us. But I'll say thank you to the organizers who have given us the opportunity. This is like a glimmer of hope, a ray of light into his prison cell, because every word he says he will be punished for, but because he does not care for being punished and isolated, and after 21 years after his imprisonment, he wouldn't have felt that his words to you are important enough to be listened to. Ladies and gentlemen, the presidency of this forum, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this unique forum and to the Arab Center for Policy Studies, Research and Policy Studies, and the Institute for Palestine Studies, and our appreciation of the opportunity for me and my words to penetrate beyond the prison bars and to reach you and to provide a sort of a humble contribution to the debate on the future of the Palestinian national project. The complex scene we see today poses a question, a persistent question: what should be done? Why haven't we achieved victory? And why hasn't the Palestinian National Liberation Movement achieved this objective and the legitimate causes for its foundation? Why have we gone astray, and why have we lost our direction, and why has our tools represented by the parties and organizations who are always proactive have not risen up to the responsibility of a historical mission of achieving liberation, and they've become an obstacle in the way if we fail in achieving our national objectives. So we should change the tools, the leadership, and the organizations. Many critical papers have alluded to these questions, and they all agree that diagnosis and analysis of the current situation prepare the way for dealing with the question and respond to the persistent question of what we should do as an exit from the current dilemma we all face, and prepares us for our future task, and also prepares the ground and enable us to create a difference, so that free thinking initiative and others to create an effective way of resistance. Revolution is an act of change which does not stop, and it generates titles and directions for its project, and the pillars of any movement. And the Palestinian National Project was based on this, and the catalyst for achieving these objectives and for the continuation of the revolution have contributed to this. And this is an effort which does not want to coexist with its dilemmas. The people want to continue the struggle and turn its national project into a plan that does not coexist with defeat. And we as Palestinians are still tasked with the mission of re-establishing the representative framework at the national level, which possesses the vision and the preparedness to counter the Zionist colonialist settler project, and also to work for the purpose of providing the necessary means to achieve this project. This requires us to rise up to a number of challenges, which are summarized in the following. First of all, the national unity of the Palestinian people. Challenging this current reality requires us to work for the re-establishment of the national unity of the Palestinian people wherever they are, in rejection of the fragmentation and the imposition of geographical divisions of Palestinians in the 48 lands, Gaza, the West Bank, and the Palestinians in the diaspora on the basis of Palestinians are one people no matter where they are. And in this framework, it will be appropriate to establish the Palestinian International Conference or Congress, and inside Palestine, a national framework, and this should represent all factions, political parties, organizations, establishments, personalities, and academicians, the educated class, and Palestinian academicians throughout the world whose job will be to support the national struggle and also for the PLO to be a representative on the multilateral case, including Hamas and Islamic Jihad. This International Palestinian Conference will be a contribution to a inclusive national framework and not just a representative one. Secondly, the unity of the national cause, the objective of achieving the project of liberation means a culture which rejects fragmentation, and it's a national responsibility, common responsibility, which does not know any limits in time or place, and this is a duty incumbent upon all Palestinians, and this means the Palestinian cause is one. And thirdly, the resistance and liberation should be the pillars of the national Palestinian cause, and both of them should find its interpretation or translation in the sub-identities. This should be the main identity, the unity of liberation, the unity of resistance. Fourthly, the Zionist colonialism, what we're seeing on the land of Palestine, is a complex colonial project which represents the kind of new settler colonization based on the idea of getting rid of everything that is Palestinian, and the policy of ethnic cleansing, the racial discrimination, apartheid, to reach the ultimate ethnic cleansing, and this is based on the occupation of Palestine, yet the objective is to reach all Arab lands. They are not neighbors, they are not partners, and it's difficult to comprehend that a settlement can be reached with this project, because this contradicts everything that the project stands for. Number 5, the Arab dimension. Any Palestinian national decision making should not be independent of the Arab dimension. Palestine is the spearhead of the Arab project, and the strategic depth of the Palestinian cause, it's an Arab one, and it's based on the basic pillar that confronting this colonial project is taking place on the land of Palestine. Number 6, the international human dimension of the Palestinian cause, which is part and parcel of the international effort for liberation, and the colonial regime in Palestine should be seen as an extension of the international colonial project, and therefore it's only natural that democratic and liberty and freedom forces in the world have always been siding and supporting Palestine, like the BDS and other projects. This requires from the Palestinians the kind of discourse that makes liberation and decolonization a condition for peace and security in the world and solidarity at the international level. Number seven, a comprehensive resistance. In view of the resistance movement of more than 100 years requires us to adopt the principle of comprehensive resistance, employing all tools and not excluding any, and choosing the right tools for each stage or phase. And this should be supported by other forms based on the condition that the people should be the participants, all of them, as a national duty to take part in the resistance every day, each according to their own abilities. And this should be something that the entire society engages in as a national and ethical and moral duty. Number eight, it's clear that what the Palestinian national movement and its political system suffers from division and stagnation, and this requires a national conference for national dialogue with the participation of all political, economic, and cultural forces, women, and opinion leaders and representatives of all different groupings and sectors in Palestine in order to rebuild this project on the basis of a national liberation movement and with the participation of the entire people. And this kind of national dialogue should be productive to build the Palestinian national establishments and institutions to enable the people in its entirety to resist and make this the law for achieving victory. And in this context comes the importance of the necessity to agree on a timeline for elections and to review the PA and the rebuilding of the PLO with the participation of all factions, including Hamas and Islamic Jihad, so that they can represent the Palestinian people. Number nine, democracy, participation of women and the youth should be one of the pillars of any Palestinian national project, and this will be determined by the ability of the Palestinians to build the effective institutions, to build their political system, and to respect the political charters and agreements and the rule of law, and establishing their relations on respecting each other and respecting the freedom of expression, religion, thinking, and the separation between the judiciary and the political authorities, and all of this should emanate from the will of the Palestinian people, and consider that people are the masters of their destination and they are the determinants of what happens, and exclusion should not be the order, inclusion should be, and the national media should contribute to rejecting violence and participation and openness to all different and opposing opinions, whereby women and the youth should take an important position to play their role at various levels to release their energies in all fields and disciplines and embrace them and open the door for new blood and allow them to take leadership positions at the political, economic, cultural, social levels and respect the spirit of innovation and the ability of the Palestinian national project would be subject to the ability to establish the role of women and believe in her full rights, because we believe in the freedom of women is the biggest manifestation of the freedom of nations and societies. The future of the Palestinian national project is dependent on the political forces in Palestine, the different elites, and also dependent on their ability to respect national participation and to be diverse and different within the framework of national unity and the ability to organize Palestinians in the diaspora and in the belief of our people's ability to achieve victory and counter the Zionist project and revisit and reassess our experiences and to close the gaps that we see. This is a mission which should be taken up by all politicians, elites, political parties, to decide what the national project is, both in the present and in the future, and away from the language of justification and away from the narrow interest and the dichotomy of what is political, military, cultural. We want one national political culture which sees the Palestinian people and the service of the country and the nation as a duty, a struggle as a duty through diversity and respecting free thinking. And our people, with its long experience and the ability to rise from the ashes after many decades of assassination, killing, oppression, torture, this people is worthy of an active political, democratic political party and be able to set forth and guard a national project able to defeat the colonial project and restore its return victory. Marwan al-Barghouthi from Nafha prison on the 23rd of January 2023.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fedwa. Thank you, al-Qassam, which means the mother of Qassam. Our salutations to Marwan, and we hope that we would be able to see him free very, very soon. So him and all the other prisoners, This is an academic conference. We have to confirm that. And the sessions have been very high profile, particularly from a Palestinian perspective. And the papers that have been presented have been peer-reviewed, and this is a decision that we have discussed and thought about for plenty of time. So this is an opportunity for us to rub shoulders amongst academics, amongst activists, and this is an important case where we deal with the Palestinian cause that has been dissected as if it is a body. This should not be done so. This is a live cause, live case that activists and thinkers should discuss through solidarity activities and pressure groups and so on. But when discussion comes and happens, and those who have taken the floor should understand that this is an academic conference. We take that into account. So we are discussing the future of the Palestinian national movement as researchers with the spirit and language of researchers. This should be taken into account during the discussion. Thank you very much. We would like to start with Mohammed al-Shager. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. I have two questions. Mohammed al-Shigar, this is my name. The change in leadership in the time being. So, in order to build a new project, we need to change the leadership. Are these leaders, are they popular leaders? There was a paper that talked about the rise of new popular leaders at the expense of partisan leaders or representative of particular political parties. So the second question, when we want to have a Palestinian project, so are we talking only about the political upheavals that are happening in Israel and Palestine, or are we taking into account also the active members outside this framework and take into account also normalization of relations with Israel? After that, we're going to give the floor to Dr. Mu'in al-Tahir. Thank you. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks, my appreciation and respect to Al-Arabi or the Arab Center for Studies for giving us this opportunity, this space that have been deprived from in the Arab world. And I can even claim that we cannot have a space currently in the Arab world that would give the opportunity to all these Palestinian thinkers without being vetted by the security services of those countries. So thank you very much. I have three questions and an observation or proposal. So first of all, I would like to congratulate all brothers, all colleagues, male and female, those who have proposed the different themes and topics that have been discussed, themes that have been discussed throughout the last 3 days. And I would like, and this is a point that I was reminded of by the message of Barghouthi. I would like to tell you that there isn't a paper that talks about the fate of Palestinian prisoners and detainees. This is a legal matter that is very important, and we have neglected, and for a long period of time, the cause of prisoners in Israeli prisons, particularly that we have there women and children. This topic had not been covered enough, knowing that this should be a priority. The second point that I would like to underline, we have neglected research in detaining, confiscating the bodies of persons that are killed in battlefields. So Israel is the only country that allows the detention of bodies after the persons have been killed. This is an issue that is very important. This should lead to ethical, moral, and legal condemnations, because the agreements and conventions entail that the bodies of persons that have become martyrs should be respected. And I would like to tell you that we have missed in the 3 days the discussion about Oslo. So Oslo had not been discussed academically. And I can claim that if we read the Oslo Agreement from an academic perspective, we would have seen how Balfour has not been as the Oslo is. Also, the establishment of Palestinian. So we do not have the many aspects that should be covered by different research papers as they cover the Palestinian cause. So we need other aspects as well to be covered when it comes to Palestinians and Palestine.
المتحدث بعد الأستاذ معين طاهر هو سيد ساري زعيتر.
Mr. Sari Zaiter, the floor is yours.
أنا يعني سأتحدث على شكل برقيات الحقيقة.
I have a number of telegraphic messages because I want to save time. I know that Dr. Tarek has many, many names in his hand, many papers. So first of all, do we have a Palestinian national project? I do not think that we have one. And what is being said about this project as being the two-state solution or having a PLO, this something that was talked about in 1974. I think that this has come to an end, and talking about the two-state solution has become worthless. It's not even worth the ink with which it is written. The international community does not care about any details of the Palestinian cause. So the international community only intervenes when the situation reaches the point of explosion, just to pacify things and go back to the situation as it used to be. So I do not think that the two-state solution represents or constitutes a national project. I think that the project is the defeat. The project should be the defeat of the colonial project. So previously, it used to be said that the strife, the movement of the people, this used to be considered the central plank of the Palestinian project. I think that we should have a number of central points. So taking into account the difference in the balance of power, the difference amongst Palestinians, take into account the changes in the Arab and international sphere, so strife against the apartheid and also to put an end to the state of division, which is a state of political division that has become a state of geographical division. So we have to agree on a national project in order to put an end to geographical division and not vice versa. Of course, resistance, all forms of resistance should be adopted. So in each and every case or phase, you would have something that's come to the surface. But at the end of the day, I think we have to think about this framework. Thank you very much.
بعد الأستاذ ساري زعيتر المتحدث هو الأستاذ أحمد غنيم.
Mr. Ahmed Ghunaim. I would like to thank you very much. I would like to thank the two institutes for the great scientific efforts and the great interventions. I would like to thank Marwan Barghouthi for his letter. The two institutions should concentrate on analysis and also the reality of Palestinian resistance from different perspectives. This is something that was mentioned by Azmi Bishara a while ago. So the brains, the thinking of Palestinians should be used in order to find solutions to the Palestinian cause. So Marwan al-Barghouti talked about the practical question, how to look at the future and how we would be able to move forward positively. So to move away from analyses in order to look at the influences of different systems and regimes and what are the alliances that would be useful in our march and how can you move into the future taking into account the current circumstances to shine light on successful experiences and also to study success stories to see where we have been successful and where we have failed in order to learn from our experiences.
شكرا أستاذ أحمد غنيم تفضل. والمتحدث التالي
So,
السيد محمد أبو زينة.
Mr. Mohammed Abu Zaina.
مساء الخير.
Good evening.
أولا اسمحوا لي إني أشكر
First of all, please allow me to thank the organizers, and I would like to particularly thank Dr. Tarek and Dr. Azmi for this great effort, an effort that had been very, very successful in terms of organization and from the different studies that have been presented. I learned a great deal from the different sessions that have been convened. I would like to thank you a lot for that. I do realize that this is an academic conference, so academic studies would not be feasible unless they are implemented on the ground. So I think we should have an impact on political life in general. So there have been many, many topics that have been discussed that were very much close to the reality on the ground, including reconciliation, including settlements, including
الدور الجماهيري
the public role, the role of media. These are very, very important topics. And as it was expressed by Dr. Azmi during the opening, perhaps it is not hoped from the political parties and leadership to detect and be able to pick up some of the points that have been mentioned. But I hope that we would be able to change our ideas into a Gramscian project that would be brought up and implemented on the ground. I have three proposals. So, unfortunately, we have a kind of a wall separating between politicians and academics. So there are three dossiers that are very important indeed. So if we do not work on these dossiers very effectively, then all the studies that have been made are going to be lost for maybe 30 years, and we would not be able to do anything or achieve anything out of them. First of all, it should not be the case to leave this conference where we have been talking about reconciliation out loud, talking about the reconciliation amongst us, without having a statement, not only describe things and try to work for the interests of this or that. We have to put an end to the state of non-reconciliation. We should have a generation that would call for that and implement that. The second thing, the situation is very, very dire. So we have to salute this emerging generation that is leading resistance after it was neglected and by many, many leaders. Many have stopped playing their role, the role in resistance, in strife. So we are witnessing a transformation. We are witnessing a challenge. And if we don't pay heed to that, we're going not perhaps enter into in entanglements, but perhaps it would lead to so many issues. We would like to have a safe and secure kind of transition in Palestine. So this should happen at the level, this can only happen through elections. This is a matter that cannot be postponed. We cannot leave this in the hands of any person, irrespective of that person, who that person is. This should be done quickly. Mr. Muhammad Abu Zaina. Mr. Hassan Isa, go ahead. Good evening to you all. I have an answer and a question. Perhaps I would start with the answer. So the title of this session, what is the future of the Palestinian National Project without any compliment? This is the future of the Palestinian National Project. This conference is the future of the Palestinian National Project. As a person, as an academic, I was very pessimistic until I participated in this conference. Through reviewing the different papers, through moderating some of the sessions, I have seen the level of research, the level of ideas. It's very distinctive. I'm not complimenting any person here. The level of ideas and thoughts are very, very high. So this is the future of the Palestinian National Project, because from a historical perspective, we needed to have an academic, research-based kind of project that would be the leverage for the Palestinian project in this particular time. Because when we talk about the Palestinian National Project, leaders are no longer are unable, they have so many shortcomings, but perhaps this conference, which is very, very distinctive, which is a stride into the future in order to come up with knowledge production. This is something that would push forward and go ahead with the Palestinian National Project. So my question, throughout the last 3 days, I had a question in my mind. What is our role as academics in this project? There have been so many papers that I have listened to, that I have attended. Every time I had this question in mind. Many of the papers tried to diagnose and understand the situation. Some papers did not go into recommendations. For instance, when it comes to reconciliation, we had great papers, great analyses, adopting many methodologies, went into the deep ends of those questions. But what about recommendations? What can we, as researchers, as academics, what can we do? What can we present to decision makers? Because we want the decision makers not to be only policy makers. We want them to be policy takers as well. Listen to our recommendations in order to be able to crystallize our role as academics. Thank you very much. We have now Mr. Ali Al-Hashani. Thank you very much.
Lecturer from Zanzibar State University and Sumait University. The very few comments in my 3 minutes, but I will start with a few comments about Zanzibar. Zanzibar was an empire, the time that the Ottoman Empire was an empire, and supported in whatever means Ottoman Empire, but we are sharing the same grief and pain inflicted by the same Zionists in terms of abolishing our identity in the same way since the revolution 1964, the moment that even Zionists participated so as to find the extra identity of the world. After that, thank you, the Center for Research. At the Center of Research, it must continue solving the problem, including the problem of the oppressed. So, not only Palestine, but wherever people are oppressed for their right. Another thing, my opinion is let us expose as much as possible the finding about Palestine and wherever, but much in Palestine, because through exposure, we did it since 2004 in Zanzibar. Unfortunately, the activists all died. Remind myself, Professor Harry Bothman died, the Deputy Mufti of Tanzania, Sheikh Suleiman died, and I remained alone. But through this meeting, I revived my intention and the courage to come back so as to continue the struggle. Through exposure, we know that we all now think about Coca-Cola because it has got much exposure. Why don't this finding by the Center of Research get much generation so as to allow other people until we all stand firm for this? Another comment toward the finishing is that we have to keep courage, goodwill and effort that the world will stand firm for the oppressed, because like what comment from Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, that the oppressed might be stronger in front of Sayyidina Umar and should be stronger like us until the oppressor bring back the right of the oppressed. And finally, my intention when I go back, of course, is to expose this, and I want the executive, I'm supporting the private office of the president and first vice president. You will see that they must be part and parcel of the findings and movement and activities of this center. And finally, is to say that I'm not alone, but they have few comments from Zanzibar while we exposed the killings in Palestine in 2007. All the people stood firm in front of the big hall like this and said that you Palestine, I'm finishing with this word also, you Palestine, your pain, yet more our pain, shall suffocate oppression. Your eyes, yet more our eyes, shall be the speaking of revolt. Your scars, yet more our scars, shall be remembering the whip. Your blood, yet more our blood, shall be the irrigate our victory. And your strength, yet more our strength, shall overcome imperialism. Wala lika.
من بعد السيد علي حشاني المتحدث هو
We have Mr. Areen Hawari. May the peace of God be upon you all. I would like to thank the organizers. So the Palestinian cause is one of our duties. So after this pessimistic discourse that has been reflected and presented by many Palestinian academics, isn't it time to revive the White Book of Isratin by Muammar al-Qaddafi, the Libyan leader? And do you agree with me in the following observation? Do you agree that we adopt in political science concepts that the people are one of the pillars, and that countries that have normalized relations have made their own people into uh, enter into a state of loss? So we should talk about the normalizing regimes and not the normalizing countries.
Mr. Tanyos Shhade, Mrs. I thought I've given up on being emotional, but seems that we're still emotional. I would like to thank all the organizers, participants, attendees. In the last 3 days, we lived some magic. I came to attend an academic conference on Palestine. I found myself attending a very high class conference with beautiful papers, peer-reviewed papers. But now I think we're beyond that now. Now we are seeing a historic event where all young and old academicians, researchers, participants, activists, all united by Palestine. If I use the word mondial or World Cup because this country organized and hosted that, if I use this term, I can call this a Palestinian Mondial or World Cup, and all the participating team helped each other, and we're happy that this will be held annually. If I were to name one team to be the winner, it will be the team of the Arab Center. And if I may suggest something, we do not want gender to be a theme, but an approach. We organize conferences on gender, and for example, I want people to come here and hear the word gender applied in various disciplines. Palestine is a political situation case. I would propose that one of the sessions to include politicians. Thank you once again. Then Mr. Now Ms. Maha Al Khatib. After Mr. Mtanos Shhade. Thank you, and I also would like to thank the organizers, and I hope that we continue these meetings because we discovered there are many things that we're not aware of. We as Palestinians, there are things that we have not studied enough and we lack the information and analysis about. This is important to build a perception of the Palestinian National Project, similarly to the panel on the economic impact on the unity of the Palestinian people wherever they happen to be located. So I'd like to propose adding other panels if we want to contribute to the agenda, how to understand Israel now. Israel now is different than 50, 60 years ago. The Zionist project is different. I think Dr. Azmi Bishara published an article a month ago on apartheid, and Professor Nadim Rohan, the Zionist project, which was not victorious or defeated. So how can all of this impact us as Palestinians wherever we are in the world? Because our political conditions are dependent on Israel and its policy because, unfortunately, the hegemonic power on Gaza, West Bank, and Palestinians inside are the Israeli policies. And another panel there is currently present, but I'd like to expand it. And that is the Palestinians inside Israel. We were part of the problem, now we're part of the solution. Sometimes grassroots, for example, the Al Karama uprising was not a political decision, but it was a grassroots decision by the people. And we saw that the nationalist aspirations did not disappear amongst the Palestinian of living inside Israel. So we would like any project which responds to people's aspirations, people will respond to. So these are important themes I would like to contribute. Thank you. Thank you very much again. Mrs. Maha Al Khatib, and after that, Dr. Rajal Khalidi. Good afternoon, and I repeat my thanks to our thanks to the Institute, the Center, and all the participants. Because we're talking about the Palestinian National Project, I think an important part of that is the Palestinian Cultural Project. There is a huge amount of information which was mentioned in this conference can be turned into cultural tools that can be disseminated and utilized to reach different generations here and outside. I understand that this is a forum for researchers and academicians, but this data should not stay as just material for conferences. You know, the Zionist movement used every tools at their disposal, from theater to cinema to fine arts to plastic arts to all forms of cultural activity to spread its ideology and its thought. We have a just cause, and I think the tools at our disposal should include what was mentioned here. I'll give a simple example when it comes to the oral history, which was mentioned, the bios of third person, the Palestine Memory, which is a great project which was announced yesterday. I think there's enough munition for all Palestinian intellectuals to translate into tools, live tools to decimate culture, Palestinian culture. I think the Arab Center specifically, I don't find anybody better than you, at least to launch an initiative. I'm not saying you should be the framework for our project, but at least launch an effort in this direction, because the Palestinian cultural institutes, they all suffer from the lack of resources. Thank you very much. Dr. Al-Khalid, and after that, Dr. Ghalib Akkari. I too would like to express my thanks and my appreciation. I tell in the United Nations, they say there are two types of conferences, successful and very successful ones. I think this was a very successful one, and for us, this forum has provided a safe zone, we can call it that, and a meeting which enabled people, Palestinians, Arabs, and also international, from people from the international gathered together. We should expand this umbrella. I'm not talking about the Palestinian National Project. I leave that to people who are specialists, but my remarks, as you said in the beginning, Dr. Azmi, about how we can develop this forum. Maybe we should expand the sponsors and the organizers to benefit from their expertise, and this will only increase the diversity in dialogue. Secondly, we should think of some basic themes for the papers and discussion from an organizational point of view, which can contribute to 6, 7 themes on the history of law, politics, land, environment. This will make participating papers classified according to these themes, and on every year there should be determinants and parameters for each paper, and also we can extend the time of to allow for new proposals and not just to present ongoing papers and projects. Well, to make this platform a source of knowledge. Yes, I agree with specialized papers, and also the general papers should be peer reviewed, but not necessarily should not be in the form of pure academic work. Last 2 points. So far as the quality is concerned, I think we can do a bit more to make sure that large enough themes, maybe 60 papers, I think, were chosen for this forum and the Ustur symposium. This is, I think, this is 1/4 of the proposed papers. According to this assessment, I think maybe you can extend the forum to 4 days instead of 2. Thank you. Dr. Ghalib Al-Akkari. After that, Dr. Hiba Hammouda. My name is Ghalib Akkari from South Mississippi University. I have 2 questions or 2 points. Number 1, regarding the title of this session, The Future of the Palestinian National Project. I want to deal with the word project. What does the word project مع PMP? What I learned is, according to the PMI, the word project is a temporary effort in order to produce a product, or does this mean that is it about a state as a product? Is it unique because it's different than the models available in the Middle East and North Africa, MENA region, like dictatorial regimes? The definition of project and the word national and the word Palestine. Are we talking about Palestine inside 48, Palestine 67, Palestine Negev, Palestine of the diaspora? Understanding the question is half of the answer to it. I attended 20 years ago a lecture in Tel Aviv University by Dr. Azmi Bishara. I remember I was preparing a study of assessment capacity building for Ittijah, and Amin Makhul was there. Dr. Azmi, in your lecture, we were outside, we didn't have enough room. It was full of paper. You gave a definition of the Israeli lecture. Is it a Israeli society made up of citizens or fighters and warriors? I don't know if you can remember it or not, but I still remember it from 20 years ago, and my respect of you is increasing. You reached the conclusion that the Israeli society at that time was still a society of warriors or fighters. So the national project, the Palestinians, will it lead to a society of fighters or warriors or citizens? Until now, what I see, if you look at the Palestinian National Authority as a seed for the, I don't think it will lead to citizens. It will lead to subjects. So far as the title is concerned, what is the future of the Palestinian National Project? What is it, in your opinion? Thank you. Dr. Hiba. Dr. Hiba first, Dr. Hiba, then Mazen Dawla. طابع مسابكم. أولا أريد أن
the speakers and the presenters for their very rich and enriching presentations, actually. Actually, mine is a comment rather than a question. I especially enjoyed the sessions or the workshops that focused on the role of the media and the role of the pro-Palestinian activism and all such things. But I have a question. What about Latin America? I found that this part of the globe was almost ignored in this forum. And the reason why I make this comment is an incident that I want to share. This was one of my students back in the US. I used to teach him. He was a lawyer. He's a human rights activist. Actually, the guy is very tolerant. He's open to the other. He's sympathetic with all the human ordeals all over the world. And I found out that the idea that he has about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that it's just the Israelis are peaceful people who are seeking peace, and militant Palestinians are targeting them violently and all such blah, blah, blah. And when I told him that, no, there's another aspect to the story, and it's a different thing, and there is a different aspect to the story, and it's a cause of colonialism and all such things, he told me we've never heard this before. This is news to me, that the guy was really shocked to hear that there's another aspect to the story. So he told me, so you guys, where are you? Why haven't you told us this? And for example, when I compare this to the Turkish sitcom at that time, which is Artogral, this used to be streamed weekly in Brazil, and it was very, very popular at that time. It was gaining enormous momentum. So this highlights the role of the media and the role it plays in mobilizing the grassroots, so that they would in turn perform some pressure on the regimes and so on. So this is just I hope that maybe next sessions, next year in the forum, you would see or hear about more endeavors that undertake and are concerned about pro-Palestinian activism in Latin America. Thank you so much.
دكتور مازن، والمداخلة التي تليه هي للأستاذ تيسير بركات.
In the name of God, I would like to thank you for the organization of this forum. I would like to thank the State of Qatar for giving us this space of freedom, and also for launching Al Jazeera, that played a very important role in raising awareness in the Arab world. My question with regard to the Palestinian National Project, when we talk about hopes for reconciliation, for having a body that would gather and unify all Palestinians, these are only hopes. So why a project that would unify all Palestinians who live outside Palestine? This project has not been successful. So people, Palestinians living outside Palestine, who are not impacted by Oslo and other things happening inside Palestine. I would hope to listen to comments from Dr. Azmi. So the Palestinian cause is retreating in importance, particularly after the rise of the Arab Spring. So this is one of the grievances that people are undergoing worldwide. So the national Palestinian project, should it take into account the changes that are taking place and now what is happening particularly amongst Western countries in Ukraine? Should this be taken into account?
بعد الأستاذ تيسير بركات
After Taysir Barakat, we have Isra Saleh. Good evening. Thank you very much. After all these valuable interventions, so my intervention or what I wrote is now obsolete. I will not talk about it. So I want just very briefly try to respond to what Muhammad Abu Zena talked about when he talked about the level of interaction as one of the outcomes of this conference. I would like to talk about my own personal feelings in general as a Palestinian Arab. The last 2 months, I have seen a very high level of optimism, a level of optimism that has started with the success of the state of Qatar in preserving the values of Arabs and Muslims, and also for the World Cup to be the World Cup of all Arabs. I would like to thank His Highness Sheikh Tamim for doing everything in the name of Arabs. This has given me a large quantity and share of optimism. So the other level of optimism that I was able to enjoy in this conference. So this forum, so there was the Youth Forum for Palestine. So 80% of the researchers are young people. So this is reassuring when it comes to the future of Palestine and the future of the Arab world. And my recommendation is as follows. I hope that in the civil, social, and academic perspectives, we would hope to have youth leading the efforts. We do not want to repeat the mistakes that have been committed by parents, and it is for sure that young men and women can rectify and correct the mistakes that had been made. We are sure that if we cannot celebrate the independence of Palestine, they can do so in the future. So after Isra, we have Dr. Abdul Hamid Siam. Good evening to you all. Isra Saleh. I'm not going to comment on the papers that had been presented because some of the comments mentioned why we have not discussed this topic or that topic. But as Dr. Haider Saeed had said in the morning session, each time we announced that a forum is going to be organized, scientific papers are proposed and presented and peer-reviewed. But we would like to think in a much more expanded way. So we are discussing the future and the topics and themes that we should discuss in the following edition of this forum. So Dr. Azmi said that are we going to discuss these themes as academics in isolation of politicians? We know we as realists, politicians are going to take into account these research papers, but we as researchers, we have a lot to discuss and think about. But when we talk about Palestine, we feel that it is isolated. We as Palestinians, we forget at the end of the day, we are a people because there are a great deal of reservations when it comes to a state. But we have a kind of a compounded problematic. So talking about a real authority that exists, this is something that is worthy of discussion. We have to say that we have a community, a society that is repressed. So we have many issues and problems that we face, similar to any other Arab community and society. For instance, problems that women face, marginalized people, and Dr. Zena Al-Jallad talked about the Samri community. Some perhaps did not know about this community. So these are some of the issues that should be discussed under the greater umbrella of Palestine. So why we as researchers, we isolate such kind of topics. So why do we not talk about reversed migration when, as a young woman, want to see our situation, our circumstances as Palestinians in the West Bank, in Gaza, because people also who live inside the Green Line or also have the right to participate. So I'm not going to talk about the Palestinians who live in Gaza and forget about those who live in the West Bank, or forget about those who live outside Palestine altogether. So these are papers that have not been introduced to this conference, have not been presented, particularly that we see an increase in level of lack of attention to the Palestinian cause and also support. So all of us in our different positions, we have to carry out individual efforts. Throughout the last 75 years, we have had so many revolutions, so many individual acts, enthusiasm that sometimes is not in keeping with the policy. So how can we study all these in order for us to be able to have institutional work? So for the time being, we cannot do that in Palestine, particularly that we see an increase in the level of support. So if we gauge the level of support in 2021 and how people now are looking at Palestine from a different perspective. And when I talk to people, the first thing people tell me, look at your own politicians. Even we as Palestinians, we cannot tackle this issue from a neutral perspective. So also, if we talk about the Palestinian economy, can we call it really an economy? Because we do rely on help and assistance coming from outside Palestine. So I cannot travel. When I wanted to come here, when I got the grant, I had to have a case in court. I talked to all ambassadors and ministers in Israel for me to be able to come here. So when I told them I want to travel, because I live in Gaza, of course, they told me and they asked me, do you have any member of the family who belongs to Hamas? So there is a large umbrella that we need to pay heed to. And even in our analyses and discourses, we should have definitions. So we have to take into account the transformations that are taking place on the ground. And if we would like to explain things and produce papers in the future, perhaps this is a question to Dr. Azmi and Dr. Tarek, is it possible to take action and start working based on these research papers? There are some research papers, some ideas that can be implemented even on individual basis, we as youth, as researchers, and so on. Thank you very much. Dr. Siam.
شكرا جزيلا. عوض عبد الفتاح ورا الدكتور عبد الحميد. آسف دكتور.
Apologies, Dr. Abdel Fattah. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to the Arab Center for Research. I would like to thank them for this great forum which is being held in an environment of freedom. And this is a forum that concentrated on all aspects of the Palestinian cause. I would like also to thank the host country for giving us this opportunity. I have 3 points. The first point, I would like to hear Dr. Azmi's opinion about a document that was issued by a number of researchers and authors. This is a paper that was worked on for 1 whole year. This effort was led by Dr. Khalid Lahroub. So this document is entitled The Document of Palestine, the 3 dimensions, one cause, one people, one territory or land. So this is a team that worked that has worked day and night in order to produce this document. And we have had hundreds of signatures on this document. The second point that I would like to talk about, I hoped that one of the sessions, I wish one of the sessions concentrated in on the retreat and regression in terms of attention given to the Palestinian cause. I would like to give you 2 examples. So the vote in order to refer Israel to the court. So there has been a vote. So we have had 17 votes that were against and 52 abstained. So this happened at the International Court of Justice. So we have had a different kind of vote. So we had 26 persons or votes in favor, and so this is a vote that happened in the General Assembly for the referral of the case into the Court of Justice, International Court of Justice. So there are transformations that are happening when the vote took place in the ICJ in order to refer the case, and the remaining Arab countries voted. So there is a great loss when it comes to the number of countries that vote with us. That is why I hope that there would be an interest in the transformation that is taking place when it comes to the international community. The last point that I would like to talk about, and that was mentioned by my friend Anis, so paying heed to the issue of normalization of relations. The countries that have normalized relations with Israel have issued a statement that adopts the same discourse that is adopted by Israel. They talk about condemnation, and this is something that is very much fearful. So there is a meeting that is going to take place in February. So this is going to be the Naqab group meeting, and they are working day and night in order to have much more infiltrations. So we have to concentrate on normalization of relations, the risks, the dangers, the future, and we are talking about the normalization of relations from the part of the regimes and not people. I wish that there were more Arab participants that would have taken the floor in order to comment on this matter. Dr. Awad Abdel Fattah, Ali Mouassi, and Osama Rushdi after that. Good evening. Thank you very much for organizing this conference. So this is an in-kind effort in order to build the Palestinian project, taking into account the cultural, intellectual perspectives in addition to the field efforts. We know that there is a gloomy side when it comes to this cause, and also we have some bright matters. So the gloomy side lies in the existence of a fascist regime, the Israeli regime, and also the level of divisions that are happening on the ground. And also, this is a conference that is very important in the sense that it brought about the academic and research activism. And we have listened to a number of young activists who have taken the floor and talked in all eloquency. They analyzed and showed a great deal of understanding when it comes to what is happening. So this is one of the objectives of the research papers that are being produced by different research centers that are committed to these causes. As I mentioned, on the ground and outside the framework of representation. So there is a project which is the building of the Palestinian National Project. So we still do not know the form. Some talk about the liberation of Palestine, and some talk about a clear solution with a resistance strategy that should be implemented. We have on the ground many initiatives. Many initiatives exist on the ground in Palestine that aim to change the reality in Palestine and to change the status quo. So the old things have come to the end, to an end, and the new initiatives have not been crystallized yet, but they are in the process of being developed. So there are so many initiatives. So my question to you and to Dr. Azmi. So every day we talk about this topic, and I have seen many people in this conference who take part in the many initiatives that exist and that seek to achieve change, but these initiatives cannot establish a national comprehensive umbrella whereby it would be able to put pressure on the different parties in this division that is taking place. So we're talking about scores of initiatives. How can they be unified in order to emulate the South African experience? There were in excess of 400 political parties, movements, and frameworks that were able to unify their ranks in 1989 through a call that was made by activists on the on the ground. Sorry. So how can we? How was this? How was this experience successful or able to become successful, irrespective of the contradictions that used to happen on the ground? So can we discuss this topic? Can we include all activists in these initiatives? Thank you. Thank you very much. I forgot to tell you. Dr. Tarek Mitri is we thought that he was going to travel tomorrow, but unfortunately he is traveling today. So he left now. He's going directly to the airport, and I would like to thank him very much for his role and for his contribution. Mr. Ali Mwasi, go ahead. Good evening to you all. So this knowledge, group knowledge, creating or giving us an opportunity in order to create knowledge, a liberating knowledge. This is an opportunity. It's a rare opportunity. we wouldn't get such an opportunity all the time. That is why I want to thank the organizers of this forum. I would like to thank them for the opportunity that was given to us as researchers, as Palestinians and non-Palestinians. And here I would like to talk about our responsibility. I would like to call upon ourselves what we should do after we leave this place. I think one of the responsibilities entail that we have to pay heed to education and educational policies. I know that many of you are specialized in university education and teaching, but I think we should pay heed to younger generations that take part in confronting the occupying power on a day-to-day basis. So our children, they study fragmented curricula that are not dedicated to a unified community. So our responsibility entails to look into this effort, deep effort. How can we simplify this effort, this knowledge, in order for it to be available for our young Palestinians? Also, it is necessary to expand our field of sight. We should not only talk about Palestine and how it is looked at from the Europeans, from the West. We have to take into account the communities and countries that are in solidarity with us. We have to have partnerships with the intellectuals in Asia, in America, and we should not only concentrate on what is happening in the different Western centers. Some papers in this conference have tackled this issue. We have to expand our scope of interest, and also we have to look at the unofficial, non-methodical knowledge. We have to take into account the different kinds of arts, such as theater, poetry, literature, and so on. And also, this is an incumbent on the center to benefit from what is being produced, for us to study these methods, and also to come up with a knowledge that would be much more wider, much wider, in order to serve the Palestinian cause. Mr. Osama and Majdi Abu Salama. May the peace of God be upon you all. Osama Rushdie from Egypt. First of all, I would like to thank the Arab Center and the Palestinian Studies Institute, and I would like to thank the colleagues for their academic studies, very valuable studies that we have benefited from in the last 3 days. These studies paved the way in order to confront the Zionist project. I hope that these studies are going to be published. I know the intricacies, but I hope that these papers would have the opportunity to be published for thousands of youth to learn from. We have seen in London, when we have seen tens of thousands of young men and women, British people from different affiliations and backgrounds, in order to support the Palestinian cause. I was surprised and wondering, where did they get all this enthusiasm from, all this knowledge from? And there are so many changes that make us think that there is a good future for the Palestinian cause. I would like to commend the encyclopedia, the Palestinian encyclopedia, the memory encyclopedia. So this is a project that is going to remain after we all leave. This is going to remain a platform that is going to make us aware of this cause, and it can be built on. And also the website Jerusalem, the complete story. I would like also to salute Marwan al-Barghouti. I want to salute him for the letter he sent us and that was read to us today. I think that this letter holds a national Palestinian project. It is a truthful invitation to Palestinian invitation, sorry, for Palestinian unity. Dr. Al-Barghouti proposed a project through the establishment of the Palestinian Conference. This can be possible if you concert all your efforts. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Osama Majid Abu Salama.
بعدين دكتورة آية قبلاوي.
After that, Dr. Anya Qablawi.
خليك اوكي استنى لك ساعة. كثير عالم. يعطيكم العافية جميعا. شكرا.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the center. I would like to thank the people who have been covering the logistical side. I would like to thank the fathers, the mothers who support their children, who support their daughters, pushing them into the political work, pushing them to be active in their strife, whether in Palestine or in the diaspora. This is very important indeed. Our work as young men and women is based on the efforts that have been made by the generation before us. They are the one who have built this space where we are today, and we have to build together to have a space of trust for us to be able to continue together. That is why I would like to thank the mothers and the fathers who are with us here today. There is something that is very important that I would like to talk about. So the most important thing in national achievements is our gatherings as Palestinians on the national and human levels. So this is our moral responsibility. Our moral responsibility entails that we should continue communicating with each other. So how can we create more spaces in order to build a much more practical space far away from any elitist efforts? So I here propose and say that this is a beautiful conference. There are so many pillars that have not been presented or covered. So it seemed when we Palestine paper, what has been stolen from Sa'ib Ariqat, nobody talked about this matter. So there are a number of matters such as the Salafiyya al-Jihadiyya. So many people are ignorant of what is happening. So there have been many discussions. We, as a progressive, I always fear that I'm going to stay far away from what is happening at the popular level. So you academics, you have your positions and you're great and you produce, but what we fear is that we would be far away from the grassroots, from the resistance acts that are being made. So this space is very important. That is why I found intersection more with the colonial side. I wanted to have more intersections with the oppressed, with people who have been colonized. So I think ignorance is one of the worst enemies of Palestinians. So the second thematic that I thought about is the camps. We have the camps in Syria, in Lebanon. We did not concentrate on them. There are a number of components of the Palestinian community that should have been covered in this discussion. I hope that you would be able to strike a balance and cover these groups as well. Other than that, thank you very much. Let's build institutions that can go beyond the political parties on all levels, because the reality on the ground says, and this is a question to you, Dr. Azmi, we need to have a third current or group, and so, not as a result of strives and intifadas. And so can we have a third current that can take place?
Good afternoon and thank you. I will be very brief. I have a question. How can we build a Palestinian national project in view of the wide-ranging diversity? The Palestinian inside Israel looks at the Palestinian cause differently than the Palestinians living in the refugee camps in the Lebanon or Palestinians living in Europe. This requires some sort of a study in order to reach the ability to build one national movement or one national project. There is a political division which is obstructing any youth initiatives, any kind of unions. These factions start targeting them. This is a huge challenge if you want to talk about the future of the Palestinian project. This will not be a future for the factions. It will be a future for the youth. They're using technology. This is my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Muhammad Yasser Amr.
اوكي عندنا بلاش
We have 3 left. Please be brief. We almost reached the end of the session. Ahmed Al-Bitawi, Dr. Khalid Al-Hroub, then Mr. Adnan Sabbah. Thank you.
شكرا يعطيكم العافيه
Thank you.
شكرا كثير على اتاحه الحيز
Thank you for allowing us this opportunity as journalists and activists to attend such an academic event. Thank you for exposing us to this discussion. It was very important. And it was important also that even the academicians were subjected to some questions from the activists and from the street. The workshops took the shape of symposia. Maybe there should have been more opportunity to more than 4 or 5 activists. The other point is a request. I know this is an academic institution. I know you do not provide training, but in Europe there are big events as a result of big communities uniting over one aim or objective, but we lack in training and resources. I would like to have some of the outcomes be made available to the activists in the world to benefit from. Khalid Al-Hroub, then Adnan Sabbah. Thank you, Dr. Azmi, and thank you both institutions. Thank you to Abdul Hamid Siyam. He has given me more credit than I deserve. I was one of a group. I was not the leader of the effort, but I was just the coordinator. Thank you, Abdul Hamid. The idea I want to share with you, which can be on the list of research projects, pertains to a number of things, which is the question of normalization and linked to the Palestinian National Project in its larger environment, regionally and internationally. The second wave after Egypt and Jordan have different features than what happened with Jordan and Egypt. They want to penetrate into the peoples, the masses. This is what happened with the UAE and Bahrain. I tell you a very brief story in a meeting which involved some from different Gulf countries. A member of the youth, he was bragging about his ability to that how he convinced the Minister of Foreign Affairs in his country to abandon Palestine and its cause from the agenda of the foreign ministry because it doesn't concern us, as he said, and it causes us problems. I think the youth in this region, the Gulf region, is entering a new phase with four fragilities. Number one, the lack of ideology of Arab nationalism or a leftist ideology or Islamist. They used to differ amongst them, but they used to agree on Palestine. And now there is the ideology of mediocrity, social media, consumerism. This means the penetration will be easier. The generation of youth, age groups like 20 and 30, are much easier to penetrate. The second point of fragility, which helps the Zionists to penetrate, especially in the Gulf and beyond the Gulf region, that is the lack of liberties and the lack of democracy, because the rulers are absolute; they can do what you like. So therefore, our call for democracy is linked directly to the Palestinian National Project. We challenge any ruler that he should ask his people in a referendum whether they agree with normalization or not, and see what happens. The third is the fragility of demography. In these countries, 10 to 20% of the natives, of the population are natives, unlike Egypt and Jordan, where the overwhelming majority are the native speakers. So this requires us to find the mechanism to think. And also the fourth fragility, and that is the pretext of the regional aspect. The Zionists are saying to this region, what animosity is there between us and you? There was never a war between Israel and Bahrain or Saudi Arabia. The threat comes to you from Iran. These are the 4 points maybe which merit some more thinking. Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Mr. Adnan Sabah is the last contributor to the discussion. Good afternoon. I'll thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just not waste time on that. I'll get into the title, which is the future of the Palestinian National Project. Before Oslo was Fatah and the PLO, they used to say it was a revolution and a resistance inside and outside Palestine until the victory is achieved. These were the slogans of the Palestinian National Project. In the case of Hamas and Islamic Jihad, they say it is resistance, revolution inside and outside Palestine until achieving victory. Then came the disaster of Oslo, to be added to the list of terminology of Palestinian defeats which is here present. There was the Nakba, the setback, Naksa, then the disaster, then catastrophe, whatever. Everybody is saying that Oslo was and still is a catastrophe which destroys us. Everybody knows that. You all heard or read about that, about the impact of Oslo, disastrous impact of Oslo. Until 2006, there was room for some choice between the two camps of Oslo or resistance. You either chose to be a revolutionary, resisting, bearing arms to fight occupation, or another camp which recognizes occupation and negotiates with it. Hamas won the elections, and then this cause confused the Palestinian people. The two pillars, Hamas and Fatah, are both negotiating with occupiers. Hamas used to reject the project of Oslo, but they accepted dealing with the products. They accepted dealing with the products, but not the producer or the manufacturer. Now I thank Marwan Barghouti for his contribution, and I wish that he will be gaining his freedom now. What can we do as Palestinians? I look around and I think in this room we have a smaller version of the Palestinian National Conference. But there are discrepancies in Marwan's paper. If we all agree that Oslo was a catastrophe, why do we insist on dealing with 2 points? The paper said the Palestinian people are all and one. Then he proposes elections in the Palestinian 1967 occupied areas. What happens to the Palestinians in the diaspora and in the 48 areas? He calls for a new initiative, for a new organization. What are we looking for? We're discussing the Palestinian National Project. The institute, the incumbent institute, is there, and it's based on legal base, and it has an elections structure, and I think it's better to activate it, and that's the Palestinian National Assembly. It is the umbrella, democratic umbrella, which represents all the factions. The paper of Marwan al-Barghouti should start from the Palestinian National Assembly and should not propose a new initiative. Thank you. Thank you for all your discussions. I'm not sitting here to answer to your questions. The questions proposed to me, we should leave to another occasion. I'm not here as a lecturer. I'm here just to moderate the discussion only. As for issues relating to the forum itself, I think we consider it as a success, and our partners in the Institute for Palestine Studies, Dr. Raja Al-Khaldi and others, raise certain issues to add new themes to the conference, this is our approach at the Arab Center, at least. We do not invite a certain people and say, this is the, we have a call for papers and people respond to us. And according to that, we devise the themes and not the opposite. There are other approaches. In March of every year, we conference, we choose a theme, but we give people 2 years to write about, 2 whole years. As for this conference, we consider that people who participate do not prepare papers specifically for this is for major scientific conferences. People work, are engaged in research, they come here and present it. So therefore, maybe we can include in the background paper, I wrote them down, we encourage them, but we cannot make that a condition. And I think the researchers here have listened to them. They talked about Israeli society, Oslo, education, Dr. Anis. We go back a long way and we talk about Oslo from the days of Oslo. But I think there are researchers on Anis is one. So I wrote about Oslo when Oslo was supporting Oslo. There are papers and research papers on Oslo. Now you hear that, and we encourage people to think and write more. No harm in that. We are open to that. I just want to confirm that the approach we follow, research centers invite people they know. Okay, we just have called for papers. That's why you see people you've not seen before. If you follow the same approach that we only invite certain people to write about certain things, the same people will be repeating. But we, since the establishment, we have call for papers. There are people I don't know until they responded the call for papers. We think this is more democratic and this allows for discovering more talent to provide opportunities for people we do not know personally. There will be, of course, peer reviewing, and this is what we will do. Personally, I insist on that, and although we should encourage people to write according to the same themes you proposed, we insist with all the energy and resources we have. You know, we do other things, not just. We insist on this. We insist on, the choices are not random. The choices can be political, ethical, economic. We will continue with this forum. We hope to hold it at near time, the same time almost every year. And we will, once again, at the appropriate time, we will launch the call for papers to allow 1 year for people to prepare. The accumulation is important, networking is important, and these discussions and dialogues, and this is not a Palestinian National Assembly. National Assembly has grassroots people, activists, people in prison. So this is not what we as academics should respect other people who've done, they may have made mistakes, but our role is not the Palestinian National Assembly. We are trying to fill a gap, to close the gap, and encourage networking between Palestinian researchers in different disciplines. One question asked about the meaning of the word project, and I personally benefited from this. I'm sure next year we should have papers on the national project, Palestinian national project. I think Dr. Akkari, I think the word مشروع in Arabic is not a translation of the word project in English. We're talking about the aims, the wider aims. This does not mean that the establishment of the state of Palestine with Jerusalem being the capital, this is a political project. We want something wider than that, not me personally, and everybody in this room knows that there was something which was lost. We lost our way. Maybe some say after Oslo, I say even before that, the rift which contributed to the deepening of the misunderstanding or lack of understanding. But as to what is the Palestinian National Project now? What is the position of the Palestinian diaspora in this project? I think there is an attempt through repeated cliches to cover the absence of. If you said I am with the Palestinian state on the 67 borders with Jerusalem, the capital, is this the project? Do they really want the return of refugees, for example? I think this is just a cover. Therefore, this requires some research. The first talk about reconciliation should go beyond division of positions and the relationship between the security agencies. Once it goes beyond that and the discussion starts centering on the Palestinian National Project, we will realize there is a problem. So therefore, this kind of fora and with their papers and their discussions, they'll start crystallizing what should the Palestinian National Project should be all about. This is the least that we can do. We all agree, of course, that this is based on justice and right to self-determination, but how this is formulated, I think this is not the only discussion that requires discussion, but one of them that we should think about. Sometimes they propose this as political solutions. This is not what we mean. What we mean is the vision. Then within the vision will come the political project. This is the question. The rest of the questions we can discuss now, because now I'm not here in my capacity as a lecturer or presenter. Some of the questions I responded to in my writings, but this is not the place, the forum. By the will of God, if we're still alive by this time next year, maybe we will open the door once again to the papers. I'm sure we all benefited from the discussion. And these sessions are available on YouTube. They were live streamed. Sometimes they were like parallel sessions. What was not live streamed was recorded and will be live streamed through the digital social media platforms. I think, I don't know, maybe even this discussion is live streamed or not, but what was not broadcast or live streamed was recorded. Will it all of these discussions be in a book form? 60 papers, this means 3-4 volumes. So we don't know. We will we will allow the participants to publish their own papers in the platforms they have, and we encourage, of course, publishing through our periodicals, but you have the freedom of publishing them wherever you think. We do not want to commit to that. We have enough of that. We have journals, but the broadcast was all done or will be. I once again thank you for your participation. I thank all the organizers, moderators, the guests, the participants, the attendees, and we look forward to see you next year. Thank you.